Hi there, this is Ranjit, and in this video we'll be comparing the Xiaomi Mi 4 with the Moto G third generation. And I know that both these devices are very different. The Mi 4 is a very powerful device if we compare with the Moto G3. But again, in terms of pricing, they're very close to each other. And I'm going to compare the 2GB model of the Moto G3 that comes with 16GB of internal storage with the 16GB model of the Mi 4, which is available in India for 15,000, and this Moto G3 16GB model sells for 13,000, and both these devices are sold in India via Flipkart. I'll have the links in the show notes, so if you're buying it, please use my link. It does help the channel. And in this video, I'm going to do a comparison because I have used both these devices as my primary devices for quite a bit of time, I would say. So let's compare. And first, let's talk about the internals. In terms of internals, both are very different. Obviously, the Mi 4 is a more powerful device. It's powered by the Snapdragon 801 chipset, which is a quad-core processor clocked at 2.5 GHz. It also has the more powerful GPU, that's the Adreno 330 GPU. And in terms of RAM, it has 3 GB of RAM. Whereas this Moto G third generation uses the mid-range processor from Qualcomm, that is the Snapdragon 410 chipset. And this also is a quad-core, but it is clocked at 1.4 GHz. And in terms of RAM, it has 2 GB of RAM for the model that comes with 16 GB of internal storage. So obviously on paper, this Mi 4 is a more powerful device, but again in day-to-day performance, I would say both these phones perform very well in my opinion. And the advantage with the Moto G3 is that it comes with almost stock-like Android experience, so it's very fluid to move around. Whereas with this Mi 4, it comes with the custom UI that is known as Mi UI, and it's a little bit different, but you can definitely install Google Launcher on it. For example, I'm using it with the Google Launcher. So another thing is that with the Moto G3, you are getting the latest version of Android. We are getting the Android Lollipop, and that too the latest version. But on this Mi 4, we are still stuck at KitKat, and we are getting some updates, but those updates are for the MIUI. So definitely, if you're looking for the latest version of the Android, here again the Moto G3 goes ahead. But I would say the MIUI is sort of a love or a hate relationship, and for the most part, in terms of fluidity and day-to-day operations, this Mi 4 also is a very fluid device thanks to the processor used, and it also has 3 GB of RAM. So in terms of performance, I would say both the devices perform very well in my opinion. Now if we move to the design and weight, in terms of in-hand feel, I would say both devices are very comfortable because they sports a 5-inch screen, but I would say the in-hand feel of the Moto G3 is slightly better. Also, we have this textured back on the Moto G3, which provides a lot better grip. With this Mi 4, you'll notice that this back is a little bit different. By default, you get that plastic white colored back, which is very glossy and slippery. I changed it to this wooden back, and this provides a little bit better grip. In terms of weight, actually the Moto G3 is slightly heavier at 155 grams, whereas this one Mi 4 weighs 149 grams. But both of them in terms of in-hand feel, they feel very similar to each other, and they're very comfortable device to hold in a single hand. But if I have to give an edge, I would say the Moto G3, because of its curved back, is slightly more comfortable in terms of in-hand feel. Now, if we talk about the screen quality, here definitely the Mi 4 goes ahead. The Mi 4 comes with a 1080p screen, whereas the Moto G3 comes with a 720p screen. The thing with the Moto G is that the screen is slightly on the yellowish side. Also, I did notice that the contrast levels are not as good as that we find on the Mi 4. So if screen quality is your highest priority, definitely the Mi 4 goes ahead. Now, one thing that this Moto G3 has is that it is water resistant. It is having IPX7 certification. So if your Moto G3 accidentally falls in water, you don't have to be worried. But on this Mi 4, we don't have any protection like that. Also, when we move to camera, here things get very interesting, I would say. The rear-facing camera on both these devices is a 13 megapixel shooter. But when we move to the front-facing camera, the Mi 4 has an 8 megapixel shooter, whereas the Moto G3 has a 5 megapixel shooter. And here, I've taken a lot of pictures with both the Moto G3 and the Mi 4 so that you can decide which one is better. As you can see, both these devices do perform very well in outdoor conditions. Both the Mi 4 and the Moto G3 are very sharp, and in terms of color accuracy, both are great. But when we move to indoor lighting conditions, as you can see from these sample shots, here I felt and I was surprised that the Moto G3 did slightly better compared to the Mi 4. Also, when we toggle on the flash, here I again noticed that the Moto G3 did perform slightly better when the flash was toggled on. And these are some selfie shots that we have taken. In outdoor conditions, I would say both these devices do very good in terms of the front facing camera, as you can see from the samples. But again, I was surprised that in artificial lighting conditions, the Mi 4 had a lot more noise in the picture compared to the Moto G3. But one place I do notice that the front facing camera is better on the Mi 4 is that the Mi 4 front facing camera is a wide angle, whereas the front facing camera is not that wide on the Moto G3. But in terms of camera, I would say if I had to pick one, I would strangely pick the Moto G3. Next, if we move to the gaming, here I would say both these phones perform pretty decently in gaming, but with high-end games, definitely the Mi 4 went ahead. And that's thanks to the more powerful GPU used on the Mi 4. That's the Adreno 330 and the 3 gigabytes of RAM. Hence, even with very heavy games, the Mi 4 handled gaming a lot better compared to the Moto G3. Also, when we move to the battery life, here again we have mixed results. Both of them have a battery which is sealed inside. The Mi 4 has a slightly beefier battery, which is a 3080 milliamp hour, whereas on this Moto G3 we have a 2470 milliamp hour battery. And I have to say, both these devices actually perform very well in terms of battery life, and both of them should last you easily for a full working day. But one thing I have noticed is that with the Moto G3, the standby time is very good. That means if you're not sort of a heavy user, the standby drain is very low on the Moto G3. So it can last you for about 2 days if you're not a heavy user. Whereas if you're sort of a heavy user, I would say the Mi 4 might be better, because in terms of the actual screen on time, with heavy usage, I could get almost about 6 hours of screen on time with the Mi 4. But on the Moto G3, it was hovering between 4.5 to 5 hours. But again, in terms of standby time, I would say definitely the Moto G3 has better standby time. Now, if we move to the music wire headphone jack, here again, I would say I would give the vote to the Moto G3. It's simply that the music output via the headphone jack was better on the Moto G3. Now, if we move to the speaker and the cellular call quality, first let's talk about the cellular call quality. And here I would say both these devices perform very well. Both have very clear cellular call quality. So if you make a lot of voice calls, then both are really good in that. But when we move to the speaker, I would say definitely the Moto G3, though it also has just a single firing speaker, it's much louder compared to the Mi 4. Don't get me wrong, the speaker is not bad on the Mi 4, but if we compare, definitely the Moto G3 speaker is louder. Now, one place where this Moto G3 really goes ahead is in terms of 4G, dual SIM and the SD card. This Moto G3 has 4G support. It also has dual SIM capability, and it also has a micro SD card slot. Whereas on this Mi 4, we don't have 4G support here in India, and it also does not have any SD card slot. So again, so you are stuck with the storage that you have at this 15,000 price point. The Mi 4 that is sold in India, you just get the 16 gigabytes of storage. So if you require 4G support and dual SIM capabilities, and if you like micro SD cards, then definitely the Moto G goes ahead over here. Now, I've already told you about the UI. The UI is a little bit different. With the Moto G3, we get almost stock-like Android experience. And also in terms of Android updates, I would definitely say the Motorola Moto G will go ahead. We are still stuck with the Android KitKat on the Mi 4. Now, when we move to sensors, here definitely I would say the Mi 4 goes ahead. The Mi 4 has all the sensors and even advanced sensors like gyroscope, etc. But on the Moto G3, we have basic sensors like accelerometer, I would say compass and all those things. But some advanced sensors like gyroscope are missing. Another thing that this Mi 4 has is that it has a IR blaster. So using this, you can control devices like television, etc. So it can act like a remote. We don't have that functionality with the Moto G3. So again, you got to decide which one is better. Definitely, I would say the Mi 4 is a faster phone. But again, if 4G and dual SIM support and also the micro SD card are very important to you, then definitely the Moto G3 goes ahead. But if you're okay with the single SIM, and you don't need do what do you say micro SD card support, then you can certainly have a look at the Mi 4. For me personally, I would say I prefer the Mi 4 over the Moto G3 for the simple fact that I feel the screen quality is better on the Mi 4, and I frankly don't need what do you say dual SIM support or even 4G, because here in Hyderabad even the 3G speeds are good. Again, I have already posted in-depth review for both the Mi 4 and the Moto G3, so make sure you check them out. And I hope this video was helpful. If it was helpful, I'll appreciate if you can click the like button, and if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. This is Ranjit, and I hope to see you in my next video.